dude, where's my comic?
Where is it?
It's right here. We'll have to we'll workshop that.
Dude, where's my comic?
But welcome
put in one of those people shooting ping pong balls at their ass and say, how did it get here?
Yes, I like that. Having a different place where it is. Having it be in the Ark of the Covenant.
Moses carrying it down from the mountain.
Moses being like, guys, check it out. It's Chainsaw Man, issues 39 through 52.
Dude.
And then they're all worshiping Baal, and he's like, God damn it.
It's the golden calf.
Well, first of all, my name's Wyatt. Welcome.
My name's Jackson. Thank you for coming.
And dear baby listener, rocking back and forth in your crib, I'm Trip.
And I'm Jack.
This week, for those reading along with us, we read, a non-traditional format. We thought it would be a good idea to start, a little bit, around a third of the way into a manga. And then go not quite to halfway.
So dear listeners.
So we read chapter 4 to 5 out of a 30 or 40 chapter book.
Well, and this is like halfway through part 1 of Chainsaw Man.
Yeah.
There are 2 parts.
It's halfway through part 1.
Part 1 is a whole story, though.
I think the idea was that we would get to a page that Trip liked. Was that right?
I think
you thought we could get to one part that you thought was cool.
Well, I actually did put thought into this. I was like, oh, Chainsaw Man, that anime was popular. They've probably watched it. I don't think this side of the room has.
No.
Did you ask?
No, I didn't ask. I assumed.
Well,
you put a half thought into it.
And then the second half of the thought was like, oh, the movie's coming out soon, and the movie is this arc. So it might be cool to have some context when I make you guys watch the movie with me.
Yeah, right.
The movie's
probably not going to explain anything at the start.
Oh, God, no. Why would it?
Yeah.
Why
would it? Let's figure out what is, why is context important?
I will say, dear listener, this is going to be something where this half of the room has read all of Chainsaw Man, up to the most recent chapter, at least in my case, and this half of the room has not. So it'll be a very interesting sort of dichotomy that you'll be able to listen to as we debate the merits of reading Chainsaw Man chapters 39 through 52, the Reze arc, or the Bomb Devil arc.
Yeah.
So I'm all questions.
Hit me.
I'm all angry questions.
Well,
Hit me.
Before I ask specifics, it might be a good idea if you could just recap what Chainsaw Man is about.
Okay.
Because it's not, you might think it'll become obvious.
It's not. This
serialized publication is going to go back and talk to us about stuff.
Yeah, we started almost a year after Chainsaw Man had started.
But
weekly publication.
I will say the start of Chainsaw Man, it centers around a kid named Denji and his little dog named Puchita.
He's a sweet little chainsaw devil.
Not the Pokemon. But he is a little chainsaw devil that helps him out killing demons as Denji works for the mob and gets like his organs harvested and he's treated like shit. Mm-hmm. And during that, he eventually has a sting operation where they find him and then they kill him. And Puchita says, okay, you have to live your life to the fullest and I'm going to give you my power so you can then go and kill all of these guys.
And let me get, this is the first time an anime has talked about a trope like that.
Yes. No, there's
having to live to the fullest, right?
Anime is bereft of tropes most of the time.
So there's actually some
original.
There's actually some context that I think is really interesting about this.
See, he'd never lived his life to the fullest before then.
Well, so he really hasn't. I will say he kind of like lived in a shithole. It was he had never had like nice bread. It was
his reason for living was maybe someday Puchita and I can save up some money to eat bread with jam.
Wow.
So like the context of Chainsaw Man is it's being released in Shonen Jump, where every single manga is like, yeah, believe it, I'm Naruto, I'm going to become Hokage.
And so people that are reading it would think like, wow, just bread.
No.
It seems so simple.
The guy who...
He must have it bad.
The guy who's writing
That is what we think. That is what we think, Jack.
The guy who's writing it is like, yeah, that's... the manga that were popular, like Dragon Ball, came out in the 80s when in Japan, where there was like a huge economic boom.
This is the reverse of like Vegeta's power. He's like, what's the simplest thing he could get hyped about?
Well,
It's like on the slid the power scale to the other side.
Well, I think that's what's
the
beautiful
worst
about
this guy's
Chainsaw.
life
Yeah.
could be?
Is Chainsaw Man focuses on the mundane and how that makes us like human and happy, and how that like taking that away can kind of like erode like what value you have in life. And so it's like sort of becoming human through the people around you and through like the small interactions. And that's the beauty of Chainsaw Man, which is hard to get to when you jump in the middle and then
Yeah.
just read that.
Yeah, well,
Also,
and, like-
before we debate the merits too hard, I still need more context,
Yes.
if I'm
Yeah.
honest.
So after he kills all those guys, this woman named Makima shows up, and she runs like the devil hunting organization who come in and just kill devils everywhere. And she basically finds him, and they're like, "All right, you're kind of a devil," and she's like, "Well, no, I think we can still like have use for you."
Because at this point, he, after merging his heart with his chainsaw devil,
he becomes
he's a fiend, right? Isn't that
Yes.
what they call it?
They call him a hybrid
hybrid,
because
yeah.
fiends are like it's a long story. We
Fiends
don't have
are
to get
dead
into that.
bodies that are possessed by devils, right?
Yes, but he's a live human that also has the elements of a devil. But regardless, once he gets recruited by her, he becomes like a part of this like whole devil hunting organization and makes friends along the way. And maybe this crazy kid's gonna make it. That's all I'm gonna say. But Makima, there, as we see later in the chapters that we've read, is the red-haired girl with the crazy eyes. But she has a lot more going on under the hood than you'd initially think. There's a lot of crazy things that are happening with her.
And I know what you're thinking. Who's this guy with the ponytail and the sword? He shows up a lot, and they never really get into that. His name's Aki. He is basically the person who's put in charge of watching over Denji and Power, who doesn't appear in this at all, even though she is the most popular character in Chainsaw Man.
And we don't have to talk about her because that will only complicate an already complicated story for y'all. But as we pick up, Denji has just finished an assignment. He's being praised by his superiors, and he is finally like, feeling like he belongs in the Devil Hunting Association.
Yeah.
And he runs into a girl named Reze at a coffee shop first, correct?
They just run into
I
each
think
other
he
on the
just
street.
pukes up a flower
and he
and gives
pulls
it
a
to her.
flower out of his mouth. He's like, "Oh, look, I did
Yeah.
this."
Well, explain that.
If I'm not mistaken, he also doesn't know her name is Reze.
He
Yes.
doesn't, not till later.
How does he puke? What is the flower puking thing?
He's trying to entertain her. That's called
That's not-
called Riz.
I was not asking why.
It's a magic trick.
Yeah.
I understood he was the chainsaw devil.
Wait, did you? No, he didn't actually puke up the flower.
He pukes out a ton
No,
of
he
flowers.
made it. It's
like sleight
It's
of
called a
hand.
magic trick. Have you ever? You know what a magic trick is?
Do you know about magic?
Let's insert the Chad pulling flower out of his mouth here.
Yeah, no, right there, and then let's
then
insert the soy. Let's insert the soy. How
do
did
you
you do that?
do
That's
that?
possible.
How to do that?
Well done. All right.
Yeah.
I'll take the licks. Fair
So,
enough.
and Denji and Reze start to get to know each other. She's like, "Yeah, I work at a coffee shop. Come see me there."
And it is natural, right? It is.
She's like,
It's
"You're
a
cute."
natural.
Well,
yeah.
it
It seems like it's written by somebody who has met women.
I'm
before,
not.
Right?
You're jumping
Well,
ahead. There's
okay.
a reason for this.
It sounds like you have a quandary about exactly how they go about meeting each other and the naturalness of that interaction. Do you have?
We're just about women.
well, like
I wonder if the guy knows any.
in the story though.
No, the writer. The writer.
Reze is a Russian agent who was sent there to capture Denji and bring him back to Russia.
Well, that's a spoiler, but
that happens in this. This is within context.
it's a
of
spoiler
the-
for 5 minutes from now.
Yeah, 5 minutes. From now.
So I can understand the confusion about that. How did you guys enjoy the dialogue? I suppose.
And this was written by ChatGPT. Is that right?
The translation may have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's mostly just like, you don't have to love your main character, but I feel like this story would make more sense if he was a homunculus
Yeah.
who had never talked to anyone.
In all fairness, in the story, he kind of is. He's like a guy who like doesn't really have like social cues down.
Well, yeah,
You can tell.
but yeah, within the first pages, he's like, "Ooh, quit clinging on to me. I'm not into guys."
That's pretty awesome. It's
pretty
That's
good.
pretty
that's
awesome.
good. That's
And
a
then
good line.
earlier, he sees a lady. Just walking. And he says, "Ooh, so pretty. She's so pretty."
Oh wait, we skipped the whole the date with Makima.
This is earlier than that.
Oh, is it? Oh, I think Makima date happens first.
It happens
Maybe, I
before
don't know.
Sorry.
it happens before the school date.
Yeah, this is going really well.
And I think just to hammer down what I don't like, I just took a quick look at the comments. And let's see if anybody saw what was coming. Anybody getting Tokyo Ghoul vibes from this chapter? Not important, not this one. I got a feeling like she's either evil or gonna die.
Maybe both.
See, if you have a person who like shows if they're like, oh, they are actually evil, that's called good writing.
Yeah, and then
because it hints at it.
Because if people can
foreshadowing
subtly,
and then Captain Cumshot said, "I like people who like me. This is so real." So
your problem is
was that one of you guys?
This is.
I think that was Denji commenting that. Actually,
I have an issue. This is an appeal to authority.
the
comment
Captain
section.
Cumshot, the appeal to authority.
You think Captain Cumshot is? It's our opinions that matter.
I just want to give you guys a taste of who enjoys this material.
And 2 other people currently sitting on this couch.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do need to bring up the...
All right, Lieutenant Cumshot, what do you think?
Well, I think that you kind of see a guy who like doesn't understand humanity, and you can see that through his date with Makima. Yeah. Because during his date with Makima...
He's never been to Earth, is that right?
He lived on Earth.
He was born and raised here.
Well, he's a devil.
He's never talked to anyone. Oh, wait, he has talked?
He actually hasn't up to this point. His whole life has just been in debt to the mob.
Yeah, and they probably never talked to those guys.
Well, he did talk to those guys, but that was...
How did he learn Japanese?
Uchida.
Oh.
Little chainsaw dog.
But all I know is that during the date with Makima, you can kind of see his unfamiliarity with like the human, I guess, like... condition, because he kind of goes and he watches a bunch of like trite movies that he's like, this isn't very interesting. And one of my favorite panel, if we may get to it, is when he's watching a movie and he sees 2 brothers hugging, or 2 people hugging, and he's like, why is this like affecting me so deeply? And he's like crying, and he's like, I really hope she doesn't see. And then he looks over at Makima and he like sees her crying, and it's like, oh, this is like what the human condition is like those little moments like can really spark something in you.
That was the moment where I was like, has this guy written stuff? Because he drew everything, right?
Yeah.
And then he just uses the dialogue to describe what the reader can see. He's like, she's not crying. Everybody else is crying, though.
Well, she was
and
crying.
Then,
that's what was cool.
That's the lead up. And then the second one, she's like, she's not crying and she's not laughing in this movie. Everybody else is laughing, though.
Yeah, because he's identifying with her.
Right, no. And we couldn't get that from just the image.
We probably could.
It's a good thing to make sure your audience understands.
Have you ever...
by narrating what's drawn.
I get what you're saying. But
what
have
about
you
the
ever...
blind?
What were you... All right, let's say you went on a date with a woman... a girl when you were 13 to a movie.
A woman.
When you were 13. Okay,
okay, all right.
Yeah.
16, right?
Whatever. Say
19.
Well, I was 11.
As one of your first dates, you go to a movie, your internal monologue is going to be very worried about what she's thinking about.
Which is fine, right? The reality is not my worry. The craft is my worry. And the basic rule for comic writing is that you don't narrate what you've already drawn.
I get what you're saying, but my point is, like, I think that it brings some value in the sense that...
If he had just said, like, I guess nobody else thinks this is funny, or, like, instead of just a narration... It's just a statement of fact after statement of fact.
So I think your issue is with almost manga as a whole, because that's like a pretty common just way that they like introduce. And I don't think that it's weird to have your character's inner monologue be about something that he's concerned about, where it's like, oh, he's like concerned. He's like, am I the weird one? Okay, she's not laughing. Everyone else is laughing, but like, I'm not finding this funny either. So it's sort of showing his like disconnect from humanity.
But it's not showing.
And I want to hear more of what Wyatt was saying, because Wyatt is kind of like an outsider.
Yeah, I mean, my point here is like, I think that, I mean, for me personally, this was the best part of the manga. I thought it had the most emotional heart, and I felt like it might disobey the rules of craft a little bit. I mean, I don't really think so, because I think that it gives you an idea of what your character is actively thinking, and I think it's kind of relatable for what it's like to be thinking about, like what the things that you are thinking when you're watching a movie with somebody that you care about their opinion, right?
Yeah.
It was the most heartfelt moment. That is, I completely agree.
And on top of that, I thought it was touching, like the leaving the movie when he was like, I will remember this until I die. And she was like, yeah, I'd say that's probably worth the ticket price then, right? Oh, that was nice.
The scene where he's like, do I have a heart? And she puts her head on his chest.
Yeah, that's touching. The thing that a lot of my issue with reading this, I think, is like a lack of context. There's a lot of things that are mentioned that I just didn't have context for, which kind of made me like, I agree with Jack in the sense that like, I didn't really care too much about our main character, you know? Like, if he dies or lives, it's like, I don't know. What do I don't dislike you, but I don't really like you either.
And that's why, when it comes to, and this was once again my mistake for recommending it, but when it comes to Chainsaw Man, you start off and most of the characters are like that, where it's like, Power is super selfish at first. She's another character. She's awful and she's self-centered and she's rude. Aki is inconsiderate. He's single-minded. And Denji is an animal.
Like most humans.
And then through the story, you see them share these little moments together. Like they share a lot of scenes just eating dinner. And Power is being horrible and stealing food off of plates. And Denji is eating like an animal. And Aki's sitting there like, what have I got myself into? And then over time, you see them start to share a genuine bond. And that's where we come to, my general feeling about Fujimoto in Chainsaw Man is he's more concerned with showing the themes that he wants to show and less with the plotting, which is a very, very real criticism that exists, is some of the scenes are less polished than others.
I also think go ahead.
No, I was just going to say on that topic, like what are kind of the themes of this? Like what is he trying to portray like through the dialogue, even if he's not like concerned about the plotting? Like what is he trying to portray through like the dialogue that he's like trying desperately to get out, I guess?
I think what he's trying to show is that Denji has a disconnect with intimacy. So Denji as a character is supposed to exist as someone nowadays where rising up through corporate structure is more difficult. So dreams are being bogged down and we have less lofty goals than people did before us. Where before it was like, I could be an astronaut and a CEO at the same time. And now it's like, shit, like a gallon or filling up my car is $70 and that's my extra money for the week.
Jam on bread, please.
Exactly. Can I please just have the simple pleasures?
Or can I just feel a boob?
And that's true as well. Like Denji doesn't understand that intimacy is different than sex.
I don't think he understands. The thing is, when a guy understands nothing, it's like, all right, it's just another thing he does. Of course, he's not going to understand a more.
Yeah.
He's not going to understand it. I guess when you don't understand anything, I'm not going to be all right, man, fucking, you got a lot more. You should figure out that dying works. Like, you got some larger order. When your main character doesn't understand, he's an animal. Anything, it's going to be like, well, all right, I'm like, I guess he gets, maybe he'll get this thing figured out.
Like, he's kind of almost the only way that you can, I guess, like Denji early on is to, like, sympathize with him, because you're like, he sucks. Like, he's, like, kind of, like, a shitty guy who, like, doesn't know what's going on and, like, treats people around him poorly because he doesn't understand things and, like, makes people uncomfortable. But, like, the only reason that he's like that is because of all the shit that he's gone through. And so you almost have to, like, sympathize with him and not like actually like him, which is a hard pill to swallow for a main character, because you're like, oh, like most main characters, they have like, a good spirit, good heart, like heart of gold. Even if they're bad, like you have a guy who like is at the end of the day gonna do the right thing, but like Denji doesn't know what the right thing is, so it's almost very frustrating to like watch him do this. And I will say this arc doesn't like, I think, do the like themes of Chainsaw Man justice until like the very end, because I think the entirety of this arc is kind of Denji going through it and being like pulled in by the nose by like this person who's like, I want to fuck you, and he's like, really? And then he goes and they go on a date. You find out that she's evil, and then then they fight, and then he is just like, well, I still want to like fuck you, and you can kind of see like a guy who, like, I guess isn't learning his lesson.
He doesn't understand anything.
But then we get to the fight scenes, which I really enjoy. I like how explosive it all is.
And they brought in a guest. They brought in Dan Slott to write these fight scenes, right? Is that
who's Dan Slott?
Spider-Man guy.
Oh no, sorry, I meant Donnie Cates. They brought in Donnie Cates as a guest writer for the fight scene.
Okay, but I will say the fight scenes work on a way because, like, you know, Donny Cates' fight scenes are like I think most what I like about manga and what I like kind of have beef with comics is like the fight scenes in comics are very like deterministic, where it's like these two action figures are together. We drew a bunch of stuff, but that doesn't really like matter. Like all that matters is like these two action figures are together. We throw them against each other for like 2 pages, and then we continue on with the dialogue.
That seems like you're describing
What I like about these
this.
is fight scenes can go on for like 10 chapters, and the entirety of those 10 chapters is like the dynamics of like the individual fights where they're in a car and then they have to like avoid the bomb devil, and the people who are left back there, she like is running out of blood, and then you kind of have to work out the logistics of like, okay, who's where, who's doing what, who's riding the shark. It's like you have
I get you, man. That's cool. But I think the biggest problem is that like the bomb devil like has never explained what she can do. So like
Bomb.
she's a
right,
bomb.
she's a bomb,
She
right?
turned into
She-
bomb.
You can
she
see her
explodes.
just shoot bombs and explode people's heads.
Yeah,
And
which is cool.
but immediately it opens the question is like, well, why didn't she just do that at any point with earlier? Because she just wanted to kill Denji.
I feel like she
Well, she doesn't want to kill Denji.
yeah.
She wants his
fine.
heart.
She wants his heart, right? Just 1,001 times to do it. But that's right. You got to have a fight scene. That's fine. My biggest issue is like when I don't understand the mechanics of what people's powers are, and like I don't understand like what people can and can't do.
Did you not like the Typhoon Devil?
Right? It's like, oh, it's the Typhoon Devils here.
Yeah, a
Like,
giant baby.
yeah, right. I'm like, all right? So I don't. It's like people just throwing ideas at each other, and it's like, maybe this is like, does he have? Do they have to? Is this hard for any of them? Like, I don't know. And then it would just be like characters I didn't know or show into I wrote it. I said my frustration is that when there's not popular frameworks, or when there's not like when you don't know people's powers, when you don't understand people's powers and like what their parameters are, anybody can do anything and everything is a Deus Ex Machina.
So I think this is a good time to get into who Tatsuki Fujimoto is.
Okay,
He
but I
is-
will say on that last part, unfortunately, Chainsaw Man ends with like it ends with what you are saying in a remarkable like, oh, you can do that now?
Yeah,
Oh, that's like this whole thing.
that's
Yeah,
how
can we
every-
just share what that is?
Are you guys gonna read it?
No, go ahead.
All right,
how
skip
the
to
end-
this time in the episode to avoid this big spoiler at the very end of Chainsaw Man. But long story short is that like you realize that Makima's evil and wants to control Denji, and she's like, well, why do you want to control like the Chainsaw Man? Like Chainsaw Devil doesn't seem very powerful, and she's like, oh, because like if he eats another devil, he deletes them from existence, and they're like.
From
oh.
history.
Yeah,
So,
and
like,
so
in the universe, World War II doesn't exist.
Yeah, because they ate the Chainsaw Devil ate Nazis, and so she's like, "Do you know what the Nazis are?" And he's like, "What are the Nazis?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, all of these things that existed now no longer exist because the Chainsaw Devil ate them." And
That's-
that comes out of nowhere. That comes out of absolutely fucking nowhere.
I don't.
Yeah.
You know, that's even how the end of this arc is. You know, you have this like bomb devil who you don't know or what she can do. Really, she can do some things by flicking and
She
then
bomb.
She right.
Bomb.
Yeah, that's it. Whatever you think that means, it can be.
Yeah.
And then you see Makima, who's like she appears as rats and some guy with the spear, and they job.
Not some guy. That's the angel.
yeah,
He was Were you reading it?
I was.
He was introduced at the start.
Is that the angel devil?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
The Angel Devil's such a funny title.
Yeah. And they just job Reza, and you know, you're left thinking like, well, it would be cool if I knew what any of them could do.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how hard this is for anyone.
So the Angel Devil, they explain it when he's first introduced at the end of the arc coming up to this point where if you touch him, he takes your life force and he turns it into weapons.
Okay. Yeah, but he wasn't touching her.
well, that's why.
That's why he was carrying the woman out in the section that we read earlier, was because he took her to turn her into a weapon that he then used to kill Reze.
Yeah. So that was, I get it. That seems really clear.
It's not clear at all. You have to be paying attention.
I was. I was paying attention. But you just show up and there's a person who I don't know what they can do, appear as rats. And then they're like, dead, we got her.
Okay, I will say, at this point in the story, it is supposed to be kind of unclear exactly what Makima's powers are and exactly what her motive is. So like I don't mind her appearing as rats because that's a cool thing. And
That was
you're
cool. The devil designs are far and above the fucking coolest part. So cool.
Yeah, Reze looks awesome.
All of my favorite panels were the devil designs.
The panel where Reze's leg turns into a missile and she kicks Denji
that's
down to
awesome.
the ground.
That's sick.
It's fucking sweet.
It's sweet.
But I think like going into sorry I completely interrupted you, but going into like Tatsuki Fujimoto as like a writer and like what he's like trying to accomplish, like kind of that.
Yeah, so like Tatsuki Fujimoto, he is an outsider to the industry. He doesn't have any formal experience drawing, which is where
Makes
a lot
sense.
of this
I can
criticism
tell.
comes from, right?
Yeah.
Is he's never apprenticed
It
for
seems
another
like if I
mangaka.
had just one day was like, I could probably do it.
And
If this
it-
ever comes across Tatsuki Fujimoto's desks, he's gonna like be so depressed. Like that you guys are just shitting on him for all the
All right,
reasons.
it's like he put all of his aura into doing like the writing shark scene, but like sometimes he was just doing stick figures. He was like, like it's
But I want to say like Fujimoto,
I don't have any issue with the art, if I'm honest.
the art is awesome.
the art is it's
Probably the
great.
best part.
He doesn't convey the action very clearly, and that is a real criticism. He struggles with deadlines. He's been very open about his self-consciousness when it comes to his art, which is
fuck
the
man.
whole
You read to see this. I'm sorry. I don't
which
wanna
is
do it.
it's the whole reason he made Look Back, which is like a very touching personal take on why people join the industry.
Is it about a homunculus man
Look
who
back?
slowly tries to understand what it means to do basic human functions?
No, but I'm going to move past that comment because I want to talk really briefly on Fire Punch, which we've all loved or we've all read.
Okay.
Jack here really
Everyone's
loved
a
it.
really big fan
Jack
of
was a
Fire
huge
Punch.
fan of it. Jack thought there should have been more incest.
Yes, that's well. So, dear listeners, we did have a comic book club one time where a couple of us thought it would be a good idea to bring in Fire Punch as the manga of choice to get everyone to read it, and that was a bad idea. I think.
Yeah,
That guy was the guy who suggested it. Was he eating insane foods the whole? I saw him put a whole rotisserie chicken into his mouth.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, in like chapter 3, there's a guy who creates a metal cup and then pisses in it and makes a little girl drink the piss. Out
They
of the metal
also
cup.
there's also the rape dogs.
Yeah, we're not gonna touch
If you
that.
haven't, we don't have to talk about that too long.
It makes me think like this guy is an alien. The guy who's writing this doesn't understand anybody.
Well, I
It's-
think
He's like,
I
this is
think-
what the world is like.
I think he actually has Chainsaw Man conveys a very deep understanding, I think, of the human condition and why
You're making me worried
connectedness-
about you.
Why connectedness matters. And that's, I mean, like I said, that takes investment into the series, and you have to read 70, 80 chapters in to really feel what Denji's feeling. And also, like, if you want to have your heart crushed, read the rest of Chainsaw Man. There are 2 scenes later on that just absolutely crushed me.
It was a part where he jerked off.
Yeah.
awesome.
And he came chains.
And he came chainsaws.
That would be sweet.
Like they
If that's
say,
that's what I thought this was going to be.
like they say, shooting ropes. He was
Yeah,
shooting,
shooting
chains.
chains.
Bam, 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 bam.
But to finish talking about Tatsuki Fujimoto, he's an outsider. The guy is completely self-taught. He's never been an apprentice, which most other mangaka have been to older, more experienced artists.
Like the Greeks.
Like the Greeks, yes. He's exactly like the Greeks. He's very open about, he knows that there are flaws with his art. And I want to also talk really briefly about Fire Punch. There was a really unique dynamic between him and the co-authors, I'm going to call them, on Fire Punch, where
Is that where the incest came from?
they worked, yeah, absolutely. They were like brothers, but brothers.
Yeah. They said, wouldn't this be cool if we made a manga about this?
But
What
they-
if there was
he-
piss cup?
They worked more as equals. So now the people that worked with him on Fire Punch have gone on to do very popular manga. One of the guys does Spy X Family, which is very popular. One of the guys wrote Dawn to
Wait,
Dawn.
one of the guys who worked on Fire Punch wrote Spy X Family?
Yes, he wrote Spy X Family.
Oh.
Please explain. I have not read Spy X Family.
Spy X Family is like one of the most wholesome, sweet shows about like
really?
family and how it's like, you know, you can find found family wherever. And it's all about like, oh, like the beauty of it's so adorable. And there's so many like little cute moments that show like that are adorable. And then that guy did Piss Cup.
Yeah, he
That
did
guy
Piss Cup.
Cup.
This might make more sense. One of them went on to do Hell's Paradise.
That tracks. That
And then one of them went on to do Dawn to Dawn, which is another like very touching, very heartfelt show.
Really good. That's the Turbo Granny one, right?
Turbo
Yeah.
Baba.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I remember
Your weenie.
specifically there was umbrage with that the high schooler took her clothes off in the first episode.
Yeah, that was. It's going to be hard. The biggest problem is
prude.
The thought of telling any of the females in my life to read this guy's stuff.
I
would rather eat a nail.
Okay,
I will second that in the sense that like
Not only can you not read this one.
I'm
sorry.
No, you're all right.
I interrupted you.
You're totally all right. We're hitting at the same thing. This one's way better than Fire Punch. I'll start by saying that. There's some touching moments.
It's a less destructive acid.
In a sense, I think there's something to that. It's not really. It's kind of a genre-wide issue. I think manga has some like amazing things to offer. I've read some amazing manga that has been like at the forefront of like comic art.
Yeah,
frankly,
I agree.
I
love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
JoJo's is great. Mob Psycho, the webcomic, so touching.
Everything Junji Ito has ever done.
Junji Ito is amazing.
Yeah.
But
He's one of my favorite artists.
and this isn't, I hate to say this because like, I think it's okay. I think that like liking, obviously we're in the minority on Chainsaw Man because it's a very popular piece of media, and there's nothing wrong with
We're
liking.
in the minority on the Green Book.
Yeah, I mean,
You know how many people I know love The Blind Side?
Too many.
I don't
so
think
many
we should
fucking people
judge
love
things by the majority.
Yeah,
Well,
but how
no.
good were his protection scores?
but I guess my point is like just because minority might be right, but that doesn't mean that the majority is like. It's not like they're evil for liking it, right?
We still like
And-
you guys.
Yeah, well, it's more that
Like, I think you're good guys.
Thanks for clarifying. That's
I think that like writing from like the standpoint of someone who has very little interaction with women, as like sort of a like that's the position he seems to take in Fire Punch and also in this. Fire Punch has more issues with its relation with women. I think like what Jack says is fair. It's like I don't know that I could recommend this to women in my life.
It's something I borrow. I heard you say that once, and then I borrowed it from you. You were talking about War and Peace, and I said you probably could recommend that one to women, but
there's a difference
cut
between
this joke out. This was bad.
No, there's a difference between something being boring and like being like, oh, you probably wouldn't like this, and there's a difference between something being like
This will offend.
honestly like
offensive,
offensive. But I think that
This one didn't rise to like there. At least what we read, there's some misogyny in it. It didn't rise to the point of like Fire Punch at all.
No.
And I also
And there
don't
are,
think.
like-
I also from this piece alone, I would say that like if this continues in some ways, like I don't know, like my fiance would not like this story.
No.
But I think that like if somebody who already likes manga like would probably really like this story. We don't need to talk about this.
And
I
I
feel like
well,
this
like
is
what?
like
No, I
this
think-
is more insulting to you guys than I
No,
mean
no,
it to.
no.
I
I
think
don't
there
think
is-
I'm not
I don't
fair.
think it comes.
I'm not
insulting
insulted at all. I think, if we look in the
because you
broader
probably don't
terms of
understand.
manga, right? And I was literally about to say I can't speak as a woman because I'm not a woman, so
I
I don't
hate 'em,
understand like the pressures and what it feels like to have body images put out there like that over and over. Because that
Yeah,
is
it'd be probably
that is
bad.
obviously a problem with Chainsaw Man, and I agree. It's a problem with a lot of manga in general. I do think, the women in Chainsaw Man are very dominant and aggressive, which is, I believe, Tatsuki Fujimoto's fetish.
Which is right. It's like it's him just writing his own sexual desire onto
Right.
every woman that comes across the page.
I think that the big thing too is like making a woman dominant and like powerful does not make them have agency in the story, or does not
Yeah,
make them like
that's
exactly
a person who is like actually like a good character.
Yeah,
I think,
well wrought.
I think Makima and Power are interesting characters. I think that like overall Fujimoto has a weird relationship with like female people because it's like he tries to write them in such a way where he's like almost trying to like understand them through his stories. And that's a very weird thing to put out into the world is like, I don't get it when like, it's something where it's not a matter of like, I'm trying to understand the human condition. It's a person trying to be like, I don't get like why like women are like this. Like when I do this stuff, it's like, that's a weird thing to publish in a comic.
It
Okay,
is.
so I'm gonna go to bat for Fujimoto here a little bit because in part 2,
Like respects like.
the main character is Asa Mikada, and she is much better written, much more well-rounded. She has her own issues that she's dealing with, and she isn't written as like a fetishized pedestalized version of a woman.
Good use of the word. It's a good word, pedestalized.
But like Asamikata is dealing with anxiety. She's dealing with the very problems we're talking about here, which are body issues.
Like
And
he knows she's real.
and like
know?
she is a more realistic character.
He's
Is
probably
she
met more women.
is she a well-written woman? Is she accurate to real women? I don't know. I've never talked to one.
I heard you gearing up to that. I was like, you better nail this.
Yeah.
I was like, there's a good joke here. I hope he finds it.
But like if you're gonna read the rest of Chainsaw Man, Asamikata is a much better character. She also has this really interesting duality where there's like the self-conscious, unconfident, anxious person, and then she's also got a
She
devil.
takes off her glasses.
Well, she's got a devil inside of her
And
that
she's
like
the prettiest girl.
she's not actually. That's
Well,
like
when she with the glasses on.
it's neither of that. But there's like this other part of her that's this like destructive devil that's like you should just use people and destroy them because it makes me feel good. Which is like problematic. There's more to her than that. I'm trying to sum this character up in one sentence. There are 100 chapters.
just making
there are
it-
100 chapters in this character.
Making her seem
I know it
even
sounds terrible.
flatter.
I'm an oaf. I've never talked to a woman, so
Maybe if we started on chapter 39, we could understand her.
you guys, my first thought was to recommend chapter like 130, and I read it and I was like, they're not going to have a fucking clue what's going on here.
I also think that like giving him a little bit of credit, because this is like, for me, I think the height of this, other than the drawing, which I think is excellent.
Yeah, the devil designs.
I think the height for me is like the first couple, like the first 2 chapters with the date. I thought the date was like, I don't know. I felt that it reminded me of the anxiety that I felt when I went on dates when I was 16. And I think that was like, that's well done. If it can put you in a place where I'm like, this is what it was like to go on a date when you're like, not 16, but maybe 14. And like you have your first interactions with women outside of like, the classroom, I guess. I thought they did that accurately. And I thought that like the hug scene where, he was like, do I have a heart? And she just hugged him. I thought that was very touching.
I like that the best part is about him is not knowing women.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Like, what could be going on?
Well, no,
you
because
say that, but that's literally
who
what
he is.
Denji's going through. That's what the character is going through.
And the author.
so if I can
Maybe.
zoom out, and here's the problem. Like, what's interesting is when the like character is like, I'm having problems with women, and she's doing benign things, and he's like overthinking them, thinking too much about them, like not really understanding this person. The problem is, in like you said, there's a non-zero chance that the author doesn't understand it. So when he's writing the other person on the other side, he can't write a 3D developed character who can then be like, no, he's uncovering these layers about this person. Instead, he's like, I also don't understand women. So
like
the person that he's trying to discover and decipher is a person who is themselves like a gestalt of my ideas of women.
It's like
Fujimoto
him.
use of the word
is-
gestalt.
Fujimoto is Denji. Like so much of himself.
If you
is
want
put
to
into
read
this
a
character.
book that seems like it's written by this guy, pick it up. Let's do favorite. Let me tell you my favorite panel.
Okay.
So Reza, when you know that she is, before you learn that she's bad. This is when you learn that she's bad.
She's bad, all right.
Baddie alert.
Nice.
Well, that's good.
That was awesome. And keep that.
Boys.
In case you guys were wondering which of us liked Chainsaw Man, it's the boys, guys.
She does turn into a bomb, and then he rides a shark, bro. That is
Rides a shark into a giant typhoon, baby.
There's just this guy. It's the end of chapter 41, and there's this really evil guy who's working for the typhoon devil.
Yeah.
And the thing is, fuck, he could show this, but it's him, and he's looking down the drain, and he says, I killed this guy. He was known for being ruthless, utterly cold-blooded. I killed a Chinese. Oh, I'm reading it backwards because I'm an idiot. Killed a Chinese guy who was very ruthless. And he says, how did you kill him? He says, turns out he wasn't quite so cold-blooded when it came to humans. I kidnapped his wife and daughter, skinned them, and showed them their hides. After that, he was also like a lamb to the slaughter. So
That's so cool.
I just like that, I wouldn't have known how evil he was.
One of my
But
favorite.
once he said that,
One of my favorite things about your favorite panels is that you always choose the panels that you hate the most.
And then he also presents his favorite later.
Yeah, that's true.
What I think that, like, I don't know.
You guys are so evil.
I know. At least with like the I don't know. Like my favorite panels are always ones where it's like, oh, there's like hype things going on. But
The real one is the shark with the Denji riding the shark.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that is probably the hypest panel in this.
The coolest. That's why he was late for so many deadlines.
I think I think what I love about your favorite panels is you do distill what you hate into the comic into a single line, because then you're like, oh yeah, I get it now. Like you're able to basically like straw man the entire comic into a single line that really, really sucks.
I'm like, if there's like some sort of chaplain of hatred on our group, like everybody wants to go to the guy when they want to find out how to center themselves. That's why they go to confession.
I do love that.
I'm telling you how to be angry.
You're the Pope of hatred.
The Pope of hatred.
If I ever need to tear someone down for something in positive, Jack's the guy to go to.
I love as much as I hate. I don't want the viewers to think less of me.
We got to read
Speaking
something
of
you're gonna
love
like
and hate, Chainsaw Man is, I think it's full of very high highs and genuinely pretty low lows from time to time.
Seems reasonable.
The first 30 or so chapters, there are a lot of moments where you can see like flaws in the drawing, but there are also super badass panels where Denji is riding a shark through a building to fight a gigantic monster.
The ripcord in the chest thing is also so cool.
It's really cool. I love one of my favorite panels is when they're like, "Oh, Denji, use your chains." He's like, "All right, I will."
Yeah,
he whips him through Beam's
that was
mouth.
that was sweet.
And they're like, "No, we're saying like swing across buildings." He's like, "No, I'm going to use them as reins to ride this shark around."
Yeah,
and Beam is like, "Yes, master genius, Denji."
Yeah,
that's probably my favorite. Outside of like, obviously like the very heartfelt date with Makima.
If you had to pitch this is what I'd pitch it as.
Yeah, the date with Makima and riding the shark into the hurricane. Those are the two high peaks, right? There are lows, which is, I'm going to read what the characters are saying sometimes. We have a crazy man talking to a drain. Okay.
I also like how, because Denji's already pretty stupid, he has to have a guy who doesn't even have like a first grade vocabulary.
Yeah. A man who's just an animal.
Yeah, a man who's literally just an animal. In order to be like, well, no, this guy's the dumb one. Like this guy's the brains of the operation over here, Mr. Chainsummon. It's But I will say my favorite panel, I think, was probably Makima describing why she loves the country mouse. Because what's interesting as a like villain is like she was like, because if you're not familiar, the fable of the country mouse and the city mouse is the idea that in the country there's a mouse who lives out there and is able to like not get great stuff, but like he's unhassled by like the world around him, and he's like able to just kind of go live his life.
He's free.
Yeah, but then he can go into the city and get like better cheeses, as we all like good cheeses, and he goes in and gets those. However, he's like constantly harassed by cats and is constantly like gone after by like everyone in the city. So he's like, I don't like being in the city. I know that the spoils are better. However, being out in the country allows me to be free. And what I love about Makima is that she takes that fable and then she's like, I love country mice because I remember I have friends with farms, and whenever I was there, I saw how they would like hunt down mice, and what they would do is they'd dig holes and find dogs, and then they'd kill them. And that's why I love country mice. And she doesn't love the country mouse because it is like more free. She loves the country mouse because it's way easier to take advantage of.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a cool
it was the best
line
part.
for a villain.
I was reading that and I was like, all right, well done.
I also think in the broader scope of Chainsaw Man, the country mouse and city mouse is also like isolating yourself, being out away from other people, or like, do you take the risk to open yourself up and be vulnerable despite the fact that you might be hurt?
No, because once you're never hurt, you can live forever.
You can keep insulting people on Instagram.
Yeah.
You can feel bad. You can tear people down from afar.
Yeah.
Building on, I also felt like that was really strong. I think that like craft wise as well, the way they transitioned from Reza and Denji talking about it to then Mikami and the guy, what's his name? The other guy, the sword, Aki.
Makima and Aki. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was good craft-wise, way in a cool way to subvert the traditional idea around the country mouse. My favorite panel is there are many of Denji riding the shark. It had to be this one though. While he's in the fucking
The guts.
It's so
yeah,
good when
that's
he's
so
in
cool.
the pool of guts.
Yeah, that shit is awesome. Yeah, and then I think my favorite line is probably about it's just the line where he's like, I'll remember this movie till the day I die, and she's like, well, I'd say that's worth the price of admission.
Yeah, that's
And that's what like Tatsuki Fujimoto and Chainsaw Man, they're very high highs. I think a lot of the stuff he does is really well executed. He captures sometimes, so like if we think about art is to make us feel something, I think Tatsuki Fujimoto is special in that so many of the scenes in Chainsaw Man make me feel something. They resonate with me in a way that's unique because we just read Thor, fucking Thanos, and I didn't feel a single thing reading Thanos.
Which is weird.
I-
Because knowing that you like this, I'm surprised you didn't love that.
I think things in media are not you shouldn't judge things in media by like what does the least bad
Or
like, what does the least
10 slice chapter.
No, but
midway through the first part.
I think like media should be judged on like the high moments and what it does the most good. And I'd argue that Chainsaw Man has a lot of moments that like really speak to the human condition and really have a guy putting his like heart out on the line, being like, this is what I'm feeling about people, and like does resonate with people because of that. So I think there is good in Chainsaw Man.
Yeah.
I think that it's easy to pick it apart once you like take a vertical slice of a random part and just be like, but I do think that overall Chainsaw Man is like worth the read in its entirety, but only if you were willing to kind of put up with some a little bit of misogyny. It's something where it's like I wouldn't recommend it to everybody, but there are some people who would be helped by Chainsaw Man.
Or just add like a trigger warning, like there is misogyny in Chainsaw Man.
Yeah.
Tatsuki Fujimoto is not a feminist. As we have discussed, he probably doesn't understand what it's like to be a woman all that
He
well.
doesn't understand the word feminism.
So
He
with
does.
that like disclaimer added, that would be the recommendation is be aware. It's not, he doesn't treat women great. He doesn't write great female characters. There are a lot of times where he's fairly misogynistic.
And on that note,
You're doing a great job of selling.
Should we review
should we review this? We're all going to review it very highly. Should we review this comic?
Yeah. You want me to start?
Go for it.
All right. Reading this comic, the only thing that I could think about was Play-Doh. You guys know Play-Doh.
Wait,
Yeah, it's tasty.
I'm not putting on
No,
the check.
not
I have an
Chainsaw Man.
outfit for you.
It's all right. This is pretty philosopher-y,
That's like a new gen philosophy.
This is like, got a Camus or like
You're like Diogenes.
yeah, or like a sort of a Beats thing. You know?
Oh,
that-
Beats, huh?
Yeah.
it's what's
By
for
Dre?
Yeah. So Plato. Plato has this thing called the tripartite soul. He believes that the soul is split into three categories. And these three categories, they're ascribed onto the three categories that he believes society is divided into. So your guardian, your philosophers, and then your producers. The philosopher is the rational side of the mind. The guardian is the courageous side, and the producer is just the desire,
the guys who actually
hunger.
do stuff in society.
True, but for him, he thinks, they just hunger. That's all.
So what? He was a philosopher?
Yeah, he was. Believe it or not. So I think we can see the ideas of Plato playing out in these dates, right? So when he has the date with Reza, that's desire. That's hunger, right? And guess what? Doesn't turn out well for him. Just like Plato. He said desire, you don't want to listen to that. The rational side of the brain should rule that and say, hey, I don't care about that. And then for, what's her name? Makami?
Makima.
Makima. I'm sorry. Makima.
okay.
She's the courage. Another side. So it's better. But guess what? Plato also thought that should be ruled by the rational side of the brain. Another thing that I think is really tying these two together is that Fujimoto and Plato have almost no understanding of women. They have no interest in them and fundamentally don't understand or necessarily care about them. And another thing that I would throw out there, Plato believes that by observing society, he can make logical arguments that then apply to everything. It wouldn't surprise me if Fujimoto's the same way. He had some negative interactions with some women early on, had some negative interactions with society, and then in his art, he used it as a space to describe how he felt about the rest of the world. So yeah, I think I thought it was kind of mid, and I think that it had. I think Trip summed it up nicely. It had some high highs, had some low lows. I thought the art was great. I think Plato would have loved it.
That's the most damning criticism anyone could have ever given. I will say what is interesting about that is you saying, like, he's had some bad interactions with society and tries to generalize about it. What I think is interesting is, like, what I find interesting about art is, like, some people will have those bad interactions with society and demonize a lot of society because of it. Whereas, like, Fujimoto, I think, still wants to understand and tries to get it, where he tries to break it down. And, like, this is a man being like, I think I figured it out, guys. And unfortunately, it is something where it's like, no, everyone figured that out way before you, man. This is not as, like, and so it speaks to people on a very deep level. So that's why we're going to get a lot of really cool comments for this episode. But, like, it speaks to people on a deep level because the people who are affected by it are people who are, like, basically, it's like what I think is, like, the purpose of art is, like, a person who has never felt understood in their life. And they're like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling these emotions? Why do I not interface with life as everyone else does? And then one person reaching out in the darkness and being like, I understand you. And I think that's why Chainsaw Man evokes all of these emotions, because a lot of people have those and are, like, reading this and seeing themselves seen for the first time, and a guy who just wants to touch a boob.
I think that's spot on. Also, I love when somebody else has the same definition of art that I do, which is helps you something that helps you understand what it means to be human.
The earth without art is just
Yeah, that's actually my
that's a good
definition.
point.
I want to get a hat that I can put on, a Pope of Hate hat.
Just building. Oh, you have a Bob Psycho meter? That's you're just about to unleash hate.
No, he's got like an angry Galactus helmet.
Oh yeah, I like the idea that as the episode goes on, and then Jack, like, unleashes hate, and you can see, like, the Mob Psycho meter building up beneath him. 99%.
I've been displaying it on my face, throughout. Anyway, for the first time in this series, the Pope of Hatred actually abstains. I don't feel like I have a large enough sample size to give a firm judgment, and have heard enough to defer to everybody else. Everybody else has made a sound claim from what I've read. I will substitute, though, and pitch you guys the anime that I want to exist. This is an anime I would give a 10 out of 10, or a manga.
I kind of like that, actually.
So it's about the passion of the Christ. And
there's a Jesus animated movie that everyone's creaming their pants over right now,
but this
right?
one's not going to be your traditional. It's basically...
This isn't your grandma's Jesus.
Every character is voiced by Mel Gibson.
Every character is voiced by me. Jesus, he's arrested, and he gives, like, a little, like, whatever. And every station, all 9 stations of the cross, he's whipped, and he's like, well, I don't care. He doesn't care at all. He's like, this is the best you got. And when they finally chain him, they nail him up to the crucifix. He says, I thought this was going to be more difficult. And Pontius Pilate says, yeah, well, I'll show you what this Pilate can do. And his throne turns into a giant mech.
That fucking rocks.
Yeah.
I'm in.
And Christ says, I guess I might actually have to start trying.
Okay,
He doesn't break off the cross.
Can
I get executive?
This is my body, and his muscles explode.
No, not even executive
the cross
credit.
turns into a mech.
No, can I get an
comes
executive,
around
producer credit if I recommend that Pontius Pilate? What happens? The way that he transforms, he's like, "I'll show you what this Pilate can do," and the Ava bites him and, like, devours him, but that's him getting into his mech. So around him, his throne is the mouth of the Ava that then eats him,
it rises
and then
up,
he goes
closes.
into it, and then it comes out of the ground, like a hand comes out, and it just comes and slams on the ground and shakes the earth around him.
I'm in.
Yeah. He
And
says,
then, what's Jesus' mech's name?
Amaterasu.
The Holy Spirit.
Yeah, I would say, how about this? Each part, the
Yes!
right, left, the right cross in the middle, they form a holy trinity around him.
Yeah.
And he's that, or he says like, I might have to go all out.
You know how
At the very end, he's unleashing his combo to win. He's like, "This is the Father, the Son,
No,
right hook, and
I
the
also
Holy
think-
Spirit," and it's a jumping double kick.
No, I think he should be like Crimson Typhoon, where he has 3 arms. And so he's just like constantly beating them down. And then he's like, and then there's one part where like you think he's got him pinned down by like 2, and then like the Holy Spirit comes out of his side, and he's like, "Thanks, Dad."
Yeah. So
That is so good.
that's what I would give a 10 out of 10 to.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sure that everyone in the comments is going to be real nice about that.
Everybody's gonna love my Christ themed anime.
That's pretty awesome.
Just
I,
a mech anime.
Well, just after you've spent like an hour like really, really digging into why you hate Chainsaw Man, being like, now this is what a 10 out of 10 looks like.
Come for me.
I came up with a new rating system for this week.
7 stars.
I'm going to rate it out of Fantastic Four members.
Oh,
That's good.
So the Reze arc on its own, I give a Johnny Storm. Pretty cool.
wow.
Pretty good.
That's like the highest rating.
It's
Well, it's
super
not.
strong. What's
Reed Richards. is the highest
Exactly. But
rating.
Chainsaw Man as a whole, I give a Reed Richards.
Whoa.
Mr. Smartest Man in Marvel. Because I
Smartest
love
man in the universe.
in the universe.
Not just Marvel.
I love Chainsaw Man, so I give Chainsaw Man as a whole a whopping Reed Richards out of Fantastic Four.
I like the ingenuity.
I'm still rating on the 6 out of 10 or 6-star scale. And me personally, I give Chainsaw Man a 4.5, or I give this arc of Chainsaw Man a 4.5 out of 6, which is a high
How
score.
much out of 9 would that be? How much out of 12? Oh, 4.5.
Out of 12,
9 out-
you just double it.
Oh, I couldn't.
Oh.
Out of 12? Yeah, you're just saying numbers
9
and
out
then
of
changing
12.
that?
9 out
That's
of
just how
12.
I will
you're
10 out of 12, right?
I am irked. You've
yeah,
defeated
whatever.
the purpose of the 6-star system. It's integers only, Jack.
Well, oh yeah, that's
I
true.
knew
You know
you
what?
were
In
gonna
that
be
case,
upset.
in that case, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 6 because I truly, what is interesting about Chainsaw Man, and I understand why it would be something that is contentious, not good, but I do think that I see a man who's writing and like really pouring his like love onto the page. And I think that like what I love about Tatsuki Fujimoto and what he does is like it's like what I love about manga in general. So like even in comics, there's several different people that it passes through at the very end and then tries to get to like the final reader. In movies, that is exponentially bigger, where it's like there's hundreds of people who constantly have their hands on it and are constantly like being meddled with and constantly being like, oh, well, this needs to be there. This needs to be there. It's like, oh, that's, you know, it kind of dilutes what the original vision is. And what I love about Chainsaw Man is, and even in this arc, and I think it honestly perfectly distills it in this arc, is that like you have a person who is like trying to understand people, but like because of like, you know, just the carnal desires that are within him, he tries to understand women first because he's like, I don't understand people at all. And like one big thing that I've seen with like a lot of just like, I guess, incel people is that it's not a matter of them not understanding like women. It's a matter of them not understanding like how to talk to a person. And so you have a guy who is like, oh, I love I don't understand women. I want to try to understand them, and then is slowly but surely coming to the understanding of like what humanity is. And I think you see like a microcosm of that in that, where he's like, you know what, Denji gets mad in this. He's like, every woman that I've seen, like, I hate them.
Tries to kill me?
Tries to kill me. And then he's like, but that's his, you know, it's kind of like Fujimoto's interpretation. And so while I don't necessarily like I've never like been where he's been at, I think there is something like really powerful about one man's vision, like crafting what is like in essence like a like personal story about like overcoming your demons and overcoming like what you're, I guess, like not understanding humanity and slowly becoming someone who is human. And like, you know, that's a person who like probably for a while felt like pretty othered by society. And I think there's a beauty to that. And, you know, I think there's something, you know, where Denji's not done with his story, but I think that in this arc, you can kind of see him try to like slowly understand people. And you can also see that like what's interesting about, and it shows you at the very end where Rize is like, hey, Denji, I never went to school either. It's like Denji is a person who like feels othered because he feels like different and like he doesn't fit in with society. But like what you see is that it's like a lot of people feel that way too. And so there's a like quiet kind of like sadness to that line because you're like, oh, this is a person who like has like felt completely separate from humanity for their whole life, but a lot of people feel like that as well. And I think there's a beauty to that like is hard to capture in anything but like one guy writing about women poorly. And like I think there is something really awesome about that, and that's why I think it's worth reading.
Well said, sir.
Yeah.
And I've got
You may have turned me on this.
I've got a ghost review as well.
Yes.
A normal participant, Connor.
Wait, is that coming out from a time portal?
Oh, is that the golden calf speaking behind me? Nani? He says, I'm actually sad I don't get to talk about it, but I know you'll do well. I rate this week as a Sanasid empire, but specifically when Shapur I defeated a Roman army, captured the Roman Emperor Valerian, and had him executed. The first time this had ever happened. He's sort of the GOAT Sanasid. I don't know if this arc is my favorite in Chainsaw Man, but it's still great. Solid 8.5 or even 9 out of 10. And he had a little context for me mostly.
He's the big fire punch, right?
He's one of them.
He definitely likes Fire Punch more than the average bear.
The Sanasid were a Persian empire which existed around 250 to 600 AD. They fought Rome a lot, and they won a lot.
That's
Eventually, they were conquered by the Arab empires, but Shapur I won many victories. He was a good ruler overall. He famously commissioned a huge stone carving depicting the capture of Valerian, which is why it's so well known.
It'd be pretty sweet to like be able to, it would be like me getting one short story published and then
Making a
statue of
a statue of,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the coolest thing I've ever did. Like,
of you turning it into the publisher.
Yeah.
And I hope
Which like didn't happen. It was an email, but like you have to like memorialize it as though we're living in the 50s.
Yeah,
as if I was holding it up to him.
All right,
No, and
I hope if nothing else, Jack's review sold you on reading the rest of Chainsaw Man, because it's very intimate, it's very personal to Tatsuki Fujimoto, and there's some very heartfelt moments that come along later. Chainsaw Man is a series that's full of the highest highs, absolutely soul-crushing moments, followed up by hopefulness that is only possible coming from this Tatsuki Fujimoto.
How long is it?
I got a quick question.
like 130 chapters.
So I would only have
first-
to read 130 more.
Well, the first volume's only like
I think it's
I got a
100?
question.
Yeah,
this
it's around
one's
100.
serious. What do Fujimoto's testicles taste like?
yeah, that's.
Are they tasty?
so good. Oh yeah.
Nice. All right. Yeah, have a good one.
Yeah. What are we reading next week?
Oh yeah. Let's. We were
dog.
anything?
I thought we were talking about The Walking Dead, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Our buddy.
Oh yeah, we have
From
to
the chat?
address.
Yeah,
we
from
have
the
to
chat.
address some of the etiquette in our comments.
but-
section.
yeah.
But first,
You
before
think,
that,
you think we're morons?
Get back here.
Tatsuki Fujimoto's balls. Why don't you lick mine?
yeah, okay, listen, all I'm going to say is all of you guys saying like, oh man, like, so we put out a short that was me talking about how like Thanos' plan in the movie was kind of dumb and how I like him liking death more.
Yeah, it's
and
way
Jack
better.
said, why doesn't he just double the food? Which many of the commenters had umbrage with. Do you wish to defend yourself?
I think to defend myself would be to validate the plankton and the krill that are attached to my giant swinging dick.
To play the role of the jester who's meant to defend the king, I would say the Pope in this case.
And to eat poison.
I would say to call that silly is to really devalue what infinity means.
yeah.
It is the
Infinity Stone.
Well, one of the guys said like, well, if you just doubled the food, then all of the rich people would have doubled of the food.
All right.
How do you think? How do you
push back
counter
on that? One of the reasons that like rich people in general are able to like control so many people is that they're controlling finite resources.
Scarcity.
Scarce. So like in a situation of infinite resources, like I don't know.
Play it. I'll be Thanos. You be.
I'll be Jeff Bezos.
All right. Here's a lot more.
Oh, gee, I sure do love exploiting the working class to
Okay,
make money off
they
of
have
their
all- they have
desire
a lot of
to
money
be-
now.
Oh, fuck, I'm powerless.
No, try again.
What?
All right,
Try
fast
again.
forward 1,000 years.
All right,
oh no, there are twice as many people, and now those finite resources are running
Infinite
out.
double.
Oh,
That's,
we just dealt with both scenarios.
Also, the thing is, I feel bad. If this guy's a child, on one hand, I like thinking that he makes a child's argument.
Actually,
and
I don't
maybe that'll
care.
make this grown man angry.
because Well, what I love about it
It's
is
a man's world.
I'm going to be able to comment to him, "Hey, we addressed that," and then link him to this exact moment in this new episode.
Yeah.
So then we get one extra view because a guy was really pissed that we decided to talk about how Thanos could just double things, and a guy who doesn't understand
Also,
the concept of
how does
multiple things.
Thanos' asshole taste,
Well,
guy?
I want to address him directly. If you are 10 years old, welcome to the real world.
Yeah.
If you are an adult, shame on you. You're dumb.
We're dumb, and you're dumb for fucking with us. We're just a bunch of idiots.
Yeah, exactly. What does that say about you? Dear
Let us have
commenter?
our fun.
And I'll-
Anyways,
Jack and I
throw
just
this
spent an
out
hour
here.
defending our boob anime
Yeah,
that
exactly.
we really like.
I'll throw this out here. We're just dudes with microphones. Let me tell you what following dudes with microphones has done historically. Have you ever heard of World War II?
Yeah.
That's just a bunch of dudes following dudes with microphones.
Yeah, you're
I
not
actually-
a Nazi. You're worse.
one dude in particular.
Well,
You're a sheep Nazi.
if this guy is from the Chainsaw Man world, he hasn't heard of Hitler.
All right.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
Chainsaw Man ate the Hitler devil,
Before
and now
we
he doesn't
go,
exist.
yes.
We're going to read the first trade of The Walking Dead next week.
Yes, yeah.
As per our requests in the comments. So yeah.
So if you want other things requested, request them in the comments. We do actually value those higher than whatever we want to request.
we're desperate for validation.
we
And-
just need it. That's why we
Absolutely.
spent shit tons of time shitting on Chainsaw Man. That's why we want validation.
And
Absolutely.
if you're
desperate.
angry, channel that anger into
Go ahead,
a comment,
say something.
and we'll have you do direct
will
anger
fight back.
combat with
Yeah.
the Pope of Hatred.
We'll fight back. We
He
will.
doesn't know how to lose.
But anyways,
Doesn't have any practice.
this has been Dude, Where's My Comic?
Yeah, hopefully you find it.